Hello everyone, good afternoon. So we'll switch in English. I believe that we have a few speakers just coming upstairs, so they will join us once they are here. However, we're gonna start and kick off our afternoon. First of all, it's a great pleasure to welcome all of you here in FITA 2026. Honestly, that high-level panel that as it's entitled, the development of the automotive components value chain in Africa, especially from industrial to innovation-driven regional integration, it's very important. So my name is Akram Saadewi, and I'm delighted to serve to you today as a moderator for such panel. I'm project manager of the North African office of the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers, where we work closely with the governments, industry players, development partners to advance automotive industrialization integration across the continent. At the outset, I would like to sincerely thank FITA, especially the Tunisian African Business Council, for hosting an important platform, as well as the Ministry of Industry of Tunisia, the Ministry of Commerce and Export of Development of Tunisia for their leadership and support. Many thanks goes to the Tunisian Automotive Association and the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers, the EFC-FTA Secretariat, Afrique Bank, and GIZ Tunisia for their strong partnership, continued commitment to Africa industrial transformation. Today's discussion will take place at a critical juncture at that moment that we are living across the world, not only the continent, especially for the automotive industrialization that is moving beyond vehicle assembly and toward a higher value-added components, engineering capabilities, skills employment, innovation, and regional integration. Under the EFC-FTA, the challenge before us is no longer theoretical, it's practical. How do we build competitive, scalable, integrated, regional automotive value chain that really deliver jobs, exports, and resilience? This panel, therefore, structured to move deliberately from a vision to diagnosis, and from diagnosis to concrete EFC-FTA aligned solutions. Allow me now to briefly introduce in depth our distinguished panelists, starting with Dr. Ahmed Fikri Abdulwahab, our Vice President of the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers, as well as is the Vice President of East Port Said Industrial Zone and Managing Director of Egyptian-German Automotive, who is bringing the perspective of a leading industrial operator. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed. Ms. Miriam Loumi, our President of the Tunisian Automotive Association and Chief Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Officer at Coffee Cab Group, our Tunisian pride that is rising actually in the international, that representing Tunisia automotive ecosystem and leadership. Unfortunately, Mr. Timba Komalo, who is Director of the EFC-FTA Secretariat, he did not make it with us personally, but he shared with us an important video that will be played later on. And he will be more focusing on the trade of goods and operationalization of the continental market. We have with us Mr. Fakhri Bouzayan, the Director General of the Policy and Multilateral Cooperation at the Ministry of Commerce and Export of Development of Tunisia, and he's a focal point with the EFC-FTA, member as well of State Perspective EFC-FTA negotiations. Mr. Felix Sarrazin, Head of Program of GIZ Tunisia, representing the development cooperation, support to industrial and supplier ecosystem upgrading. We will be waiting for two more panelists, Mr. Ayman Zabi, Director of Trade, Investment and Corporate at Afrique Bank. Hello, welcome. Perfect, thank you for joining. And as well, Mr. Ibrahim Dabesh, International Development Specialist at TAA, as well Vice President with AHACA Tunisia and President of Chamber of Automotive Dealers within UTICA. Thank you all for being here, and I believe now we can start that discussion zooming out on the looking broader picture about this main automotive and mobility industry. So the question, first one that we're going to start with is, what are the decisive factors that will determine whether Africa becomes a competitive automotive and mobility manufacturing base over the next decade? So I'm going to start with Dr. Ahmed to start quick 1 minute reply for that.
Let me start by thanking the Tunisian Automotive Association for making this possible and hosting us. And I would also like to thank GIZ for the opportunity to share some thoughts about how the AAAM approaches the development of the automotive industry in Africa. To answer the question in brief, policy making, industrial and trade policy making is key to the development of the automotive industry in Africa. And let me add to this, stability of policies is also key to making sure that we can bring investments into the continent and make sure that we create jobs in a sustainable manner. What I have seen from my experience in Egypt, unfortunately, in many cases, we see developments happening and then we retract and we'd have to restart all over again. And I will share in the next few interventions some of the thoughts that we have seen and how development has happened on policy making with the assistance of the AAAM. Because it's a very interesting story how we have done the development in Egypt, starting in 2020-21 up until 2026 with the aid and the support of the AAAM. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. And I would like to move the same question to Ms. Miriam Al-Loumi.
Thank you. Thank you, Akram, and thank you, and hello to everybody. I would like to answer, as I have only 1 minute, I will be very short, and I would actually quote AAAM, as there was, as TAA, we started cooperating with AAAM a few years ago, and there was a slide that always impressed me, and it's a comparison between the Indian and the African automotive market, and the evolution over the years. Because in terms of territory, of capabilities, it was quite similar. But when you look at the Indian automotive industry right now, it's fabulous. I mean, what was possible to achieve. Okay, of course, this is on the long run. This is a dream. But I believe that we can have this dream. And for me, therefore, the most important factor is to scale regional integration. Is really to find better ways to work better together in order to have one African automotive market. And I think that's the only way to really achieve it. And of course, that goes with regulation, that goes with logistics, that goes with innovation, that goes with standards, that goes with a lot of things that we will discuss today. But I think the key here is really the cooperation between the countries and the integration of the African market.
Thank you, Ms. Miriam. And I would like to move to Mr. Fakhreddine, and let me ask in French, with Mr. Fakhri, who will use in French. Alors, si Fakhri, la question aujourd'hui, c'est quels sont les facteurs déterminants qui permettront l'Afrique de devenir au cours de les prochaines décennies une base compétitive pour la production, pour le secteur automobile et la mobilité.
Merci pour votre question et aussi merci pour m'avoir invité à ce panel très important. En fait, comme vous savez tous, la ZLECAF ambitionne de faire un marché continental africain et aussi c'est un marché très pertinent pour tous les biens et services et notamment le secteur automobile qui est un secteur parmi les secteurs qui ont été identifiés prioritaires dans le cadre de la ZLECAF. C'est important parce que c'est ce qu'on appelle l'industrie industrialisante. C'est un secteur qui étire avec lui d'autres secteurs. Actuellement, au niveau de l'Afrique, nous n'avons pas d'une industrie automobile, sauf dans certains pays, notamment l'Afrique du Sud, le Maroc et l'Algérie, pour tout ce qui est construction d'automobiles. Par contre, tout ce qui est composante automobile, elle est très développée au niveau de l'Afrique et la Tunisie aussi fait partie des pays qui ont un tissu industriel très développé par rapport à ce point. Donc notre objectif et notre idée, c'est comment connecter tous ces éléments-là, comment faire de l'industrie automobile une locomotive non pas seulement pour les pays qui ont l'industrie, mais pour les autres pays. Parce que, comme on a dit toujours, l'objectif de l'ASLECAF, ce n'est pas que les pays qui sont développés ou qui ont les capacités bénéficient, mais il faut que tout le monde en bénéficie, selon ses moyens, ses capacités de production. Donc, c'est pour cela qu'on a vu aussi que la Tunisie a beaucoup de moyens pour être un joueur essentiel sur cette thématique-là. Mais par contre, vous savez, au niveau du secteur automobile spécialement, les constructeurs ou bien les donneurs d'ordre ne sont pas des Africains, c'est des donneurs d'ordre étrangers. Et notre objectif, c'est avoir un pourcentage de composantes africains, d'origine africaine, dans toutes les voitures qui circulent en Afrique. Donc, si on arrive à mettre en place cette possibilité que pour avoir un avantage et pour vendre une voiture en Afrique, il faut que certaines composantes soient produites en Afrique, ceci peut faciliter la mise en œuvre et le développement de ce secteur en Afrique. Voilà, merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Fakhri. Let me switch now to Mr. Ayman for the same introduction question. Let's hear about the perspective of Afreximbank.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me among this very distinguished and esteemed panelists, and I would like to thank the audience also who are here with us today. For us at Afreximbank, we see that three axes must happen for the automotive sector to become present strongly in Africa. The first thing is policy. All governments and African countries must adopt a strong and deliberate policy to localize the automotive business and the automotive industry within Africa. The second thing, regional integration in the value chains. Not every country can produce a car, so that we have to depend on each other in order to achieve the overall goal for Africa. So regional integration in the automotive value chain. And the third thing is the feeding industries. When you think about and talk about the automotive industry, everybody thinks and moves into manufacturing a car, the engine, which obviously is not possible at the moment because of the lack of technology expertise and so many things else. But what we can do is invest and support the feeding industries so that we create the ecosystem for the automotive sector, and then we build up from that until we reach into the full manufacturing of a car. So if we do those three things, which are obvious but yet not very much followed, I think the landscape of the automotive sector will change across Africa.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayman. And I would love, before moving to the first round, I would ask that to Mr. Felix Sarazan, given the role of GIZ Tunisia's technical cooperation and that has been done work in Tunisia and broader across the region. Mr. Felix?
No, I think I'm just going to pick up on what everybody said already, but I think you just said it also. It's a strong, structured, national and regional ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, I think it starts with a national association that can represent the automotive sector and that can deliver services to the automotive sector, because that's structuring. They can then ensure the political dialogue to ensure a positive political environment for the investment and for the trade. It requires qualified human resources to be available. It requires a network and visibility, because I don't think that a lot of European suppliers, even a lot of African partners, know of the different markets and the different industries that we have. We spoke about Morocco, but nobody speaks about Tunisia. A couple of years back, I think we managed to change that. So we need to work on this visibility and the networking. And finally, we need to work on everything around services. To be able to compete on an international market, we need to be able to fulfill all the standards and all the requirements of the international market. And every single country needs to work on that. But this complementarity, I think that you just addressed, this is also something where we can learn, support, and reinforce each other. And I think that's critical. And lastly, the whole topic of trade logistics, that today represents a big challenge across the continent.
Thank you so much, Mr. Felix, and I believe that giving us directly toward the depth of this discussion of today, that's why we would like to more currently check the state of our value chain. And I would like to address again to Dr. Ahmed Fikri, and here the question, especially as industrial operator perspective, which industrial policy tools such as local content, rules of origins, incentives, industrial zones, and trade facilitation that have delivered tangible and concrete results, and where have regulatory frameworks slowed scale up this competitiveness?
Let me use this opportunity to share with you how the AAAM supported the Egyptian industry in arriving or formulating an automotive industrial policy. Because I think this is key and we need to help each other out. And I'm going to reach out to TAA as we in Egypt are forming the foundation of Automotive Manufacturers Association in Egypt. But let me start by saying the journey started around the end of 2020, early 2021, with a meeting from the AAAM with the Prime Minister of Egypt, in which the AAAM emphasized the importance of policies and stability of policies, industrial policies I'm talking about, for a country to develop its industrial automotive infrastructure. And in that meeting, the AAAM offered the support that it can give to the policy formulators in Egypt to tailor ways of approaching this industry in a way that is WTO compliant, in a way that incentivizes local value addition, in a way that makes the automotive industry competitive in its own right. And at that time, the Prime Minister, who is still the same Prime Minister since 2020, when the meeting took place, welcomed very much the assistance of the AAAM. And we put a working group that worked on formulating the policy. We had a lot of support from the AAAM, building on the South African experience that goes back to the mid-90s when they started working and formulating a policy for the automotive industry in South Africa. And in particular, I will note Dr. Alec Irwin, who is really one of the very knowledgeable individuals on the continent when it comes to WTO rules, which we wanted to be compliant with. And we managed in 6 months to come up with a policy that was formulated, launched from East Port Said, and we already now have a fund that is allocated by the Ministry of Finance to support this industry. The policy builds on 4 pillars: local value addition, investments, volume, compliance, environmental compliance. And based on these, the OEMs are able to capture incentives that would assist them in building the competitiveness along with the feeding industries that are needed because of the local value addition that is needed. So in brief, we need to support each other in the continent in building policies that integrate the ecosystems of the different countries across Africa. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, and I definitely believe in that experience actually getting from Egypt, South Africa, and the way that we are building these policies that will definitely benefit across as well the other regions, which there is other countries giving great work actually, and that's giving us a great transition to Tunisia. And I would not talk about the pact or the policy itself, but I would ask Ms. Miriam that given that Tunisia built a strong automotive component base, export base today, what are the key success factors and what structural constraints that today it's facing and limiting upgrading of and diversification of today?
Thank you, Akram, for this question. So Tunisia is strong of a very solid industrial culture, an automotive industry culture. We started assembling cars in the 60s. And our whole industry was built along with the European market. That's also an important component, because what we can still see today is that we have an export discipline with the proximity to Europe as a key, as Tunisia is the gateway between Europe and Africa. This we always remind that. But getting back to Europe, because Europe still as of today is 80% of our export, so it's basically our production output. It's our first market. With the first you have Germany, you have France, you have Italy, Romania, and means an alignment with the standards, with the prerequisite in terms of quality and everything in terms of innovations as well. So we really built our industry around that. So that strong and industrial culture and automotive components, industrial base. Today, automotive industry in Tunisia represent 4% of the GDP of the country. And it's 4 billion euros export yearly, which is huge for the country. I mean, we remind Tunisia is a small country also. Unfortunately, we don't have the chance as of today to have an OEM, a car maker present here, although we have all the segments of the value chain here. So we did not have the chance to benefit from the dynamic of an ecosystem that can be built by the presence of an OEM that dynamizes. I mean, he brings everything with him. But we adapted to the needs by ourselves. And we created this ecosystem by ourselves. So another of the key success factors is that partnership that we have, the private, through mainly TAA, the Tunisian Automotive Association, that was created back in 2016 to serve so it's private for private. I mean, it was created by the companies of the automotive industry present in Tunisia for, to boost that ecosystem. And what's interesting is that we have a lot of tier 2, tier 3, tier 1s for the automotive industry that are industrial players, but we also have a lot of local champions. And all these people gathered together and agreed to work together on implementing a strong ecosystem. So that's the biggest strength. And through TAA, we have been also able to have dialogue with the governments, with the institutions, with the different organisms, with the other automotive associations worldwide, in order to really to, I don't want to use the word lobby, but I have to somehow, but to influence the regulations to make sure that we are aligned with the international trends in terms of automotive and that we are ready to face all the shifts. And God knows we lived a lot over the last years. So it's our job, our duty to make sure that Tunisia is evolving along that and to make sure that our industry is still matching and even going ahead of the needs of the automotive industry. And of course, all of this is powered by Tunisian capabilities, and that's our biggest strength, the Tunisian skills, the human skills, the labor force, because we have a very important number of graduates. We have of university graduates and engineers yearly. We have a great concentration of researchers compared to the population. We have a lot of innovation hubs, yes, in the countries, and a lot of initiatives to boost that. And all of this together is creating all the key success factors of Tunisia automotive industry. Now, in terms of constraints, of course, there are a lot on which we're working, of course, but we need to upgrade the local testing, validation, and certification, although we're not bad. I mean, we're already doing so, and a lot of tests are already being performed in Tunisia, but of course, it always has to be improved. Felix was talking about the visibility of the country, and this is the key challenge on which we're also working with the pact. Thanks also, Akram, for mentioning this project. The pact on which public and private are working to boost the ecosystem and hopefully attract an OEM in the country. Logistics and trade frictions. I think this topic will be mentioned several times during this panel because it's still one of the key issues, I mean, for the continent as well. The investment conditions of the country, of course, we always keep partnering. We're not a very rich country, but hopefully we have some partners who can support with that. And the e-mobility shift and the innovation, and this, of course, I mean, Tunisian companies are actively working on this, and we are aligning on all the trends, and we're moving ahead.
Thank you so much, Ms. Miriam. And indeed, the Tunisian efforts in continuing building the industry of automotive, but especially to share that expertise with the neighbors countries, because they are really active as well, that would be definitely give another age, and I think that would be more discussed. I would like to move to Mr. Fakhri Bouzayen, and let me switch to French. Au regard aujourd'hui de la rôle de la Tunisie, surtout dans la négociation de ZLECAf, que vous étiez déjà partie de cette négociation avec la secrétariat de ZLECAf, en particulier sur les règles d'origine, quels sont aujourd'hui les principaux obstacles pratiques qui freinent le développement de chaînes de valeur régionales et cette compétitivité, surtout pour le secteur des composantes. Et la deuxième partie, c'est comment ces règles d'origine vraiment pourrait être utile pour mieux avoir une excellence opérationnelle afin de soutenir les fournisseurs tunisiens et africains pour avoir une intégration locale et régionale.
Merci pour votre question. En fait, comme vous savez, l'idée derrière la ZLECAf, c'est l'intégration régionale. Et pourquoi l'intégration ? Parce que plus on est intégré au niveau régional, plus on est développé. Et si vous faites une comparaison par rapport au reste des régions du monde, vous allez voir que l'Afrique est le continent le moins intégré. Le moins intégré parce qu'il n'y a pas de chaîne de valeur régionale. Donc, plus on développe les chaînes de valeur régionales, plus il y a du commerce entre les pays voisins, plus il y a de développement, il y a plus d'industrialisation, il y a d'investissement, il y a création d'emplois et bien sûr le bien-être pour le citoyen. Donc, cette démarche pour une intégration a besoin que les pays africains font des échanges avec des produits africains. Cependant, les capacités actuelles des pays africains sont très limitées. Nos échanges se font principalement avec des pays hors continent et c'est de la matière première à l'exception de quelques pays comme la Tunisie et notamment les pays de l'Afrique du Nord ou bien l'Afrique du Sud qui ont pu mettre en place une industrie assez développée, un tissu industriel assez développé. Donc, comment inciter des investisseurs étrangers à investir en Afrique, comment faire des échanges entre pays africains et comment assurer cette intégration et comment garantir que seuls des produits africains peuvent circuler avec des avantages. C'est là où se présentent les règles d'origine. En fait, les règles d'origine, c'est le passeport de facilitation de déplacement des produits tout en ayant des avantages au niveau des impôts, au niveau des droits de douane principalement. Donc il faut avoir des règles d'origine spécifiques pour chaque produit. Il faut avoir une règle d'origine spécifique qui permet que ce produit circule librement entre les pays africains. Mais là, il y a aussi le paradigme, parce qu'on ne produit pas assez, et surtout pour le secteur automobile, qui est un secteur assez réglementé et assez complexe. Donc, c'est pourquoi les négociations ont pris plus de 5 ans sur le secteur automobile, sur les règles d'origine. On vient de les finaliser au mois d'octobre 2025, donc récemment. Et on devait faire un arbitrage parce qu'une règle d'origine assez rigide ne permettait pas une industrialisation de l'Afrique et une règle d'origine assez souple ou flexible ne permettait pas aussi une industrialisation parce qu'on va continuer à importer et faire des opérations non substantielles au niveau des produits qui seront échangés. Donc, comment trouver le juste équilibre? Et en fait, on a parvenu à un équilibre qui est de 60% de valeurs non originaires et 40% de valeurs d'origine africaine. Donc, ce qui est sûr que les voitures ou les composantes automobiles qui vont bénéficier de cet avantage de la ZLECAf, c'est les composantes ou un taux d'intégration de 40% de produits locaux. Donc, ça, c'est pour 5 ans. Et on va revoir après 5 ans cette règle et quel est le résultat Est-ce que ceci a permis de développer les échanges entre pays africains? Est-ce que ceci a permis une industrialisation? Est-ce que ceci a permis une intégration encore plus accentuée entre les pays africains? Et après ceci, on peut aller peut-être à augmenter aussi la part des intrants africains. Il faut savoir, par exemple, pour faire la comparaison, que maintenant, au niveau de l'Union européenne, les parts des parties, des composantes non originaires, c'est 45%. Donc l'Europe, qui est un pays, qui est un continent, s'est développé au niveau de l'industrie automobile, c'est seulement 55% de produits originaires. Nous, en Afrique, on ambitionne pour 40% actuellement, mais on espère aller un peu plus loin si on peut vraiment atteindre un niveau d'industrialisation et de maturation dans ce secteur qui permet de produire ces produits au niveau africain. Voilà. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Fakhri. Just maybe to give a summary, I think that the rules of origins today, especially with the EFCFTA Secretariat, given that it's needed 40% of local integration and 60% of external, that would be allowing to more focusing on the local industrialization. And then, in terms of regional integration, that will facilitate that the synergy that, like Mr. Ayman already mentioned, to work all the countries together to be complementary in order to really push the industry there. So I would like now to move directly to Mr. Ayman. And what are the most critical financing, trade facilitation, and risk bottlenecks facing automotive component manufacturers, particularly SMEs?
Thank you very much. Before I answer this question, I would like to also take you through the journey that we have been through at African Bank, because we've done some lobbying ourselves, like what Mariam was saying, because God knows that Africa needs a lot of lobbying. We've worked with AAAM, we've worked with governments, we've worked with automotive experts, manufacturers, OEMs, to try and develop a common strategy. We've been lobbying with African governments for them to adopt automotive policies, worked with the FCFTA a lot on the rules of origin and the standardization of standards and agreements. It's been so difficult to come to a common ground among all those stakeholders. And based on that, we have developed our automotive strategy. And from that, we've developed automotive financing products. So I've created specific financing programs that are tailor-made and indicated to support the automotive value chain and the components manufacturing in particular that would pour into the SMEs. And a lot of the obstacles that we see are, they are not real. Actually, they are artificial. They are just perceptions. But if you deal with the reality of the matter, you find them more of opportunities than obstacles. A number of obstacles. One of the main obstacles that we see is the market information. For example, you will see a lot of success stories across the continent, scattered, yes, for certain elements, yes. For example, the tire manufacturing in Algeria, the assembly of automobiles in Egypt, the components manufacturing in Tunisia. But more importantly, you don't find so many other countries knowing that Tunisia, for example, is producing components for the automotive business. You don't find so many African countries knowing that Algeria produces tires and they can import from Algeria or integrate with Algeria in that kind of business. So the very first obstacle that we see is the lack of market information, and which we try to bridge and play a major role in bringing those people together so that we bridge the market information gap. The other one is the perception of risk, because the OEMs are very bankable. Then you come to the suppliers or the distributors, half and half. Some of them have good balance sheets, some don't. And then you come to the small distributors or the SMEs. They are not bankable, so they don't have any collateral to give to banks. So if you finance each step of the value chain independently, it will never happen. What we can do is that if you look at it at an entire value chain, then it becomes bankable. If you look at the entire value chain as a one bankable asset, depending on the cash flow rather than the balance sheet of each item or the collateral, then it becomes bankable. And that's also one of the roles that we at African Bank try to play, since we're a multilateral and we operate in different countries and different sectors. So we try to play a coordination role to finance the whole automotive value chain, and then we'll bring in local banks to finance their own part that they can do, bring insurance to provide the necessary insurance policies, we'll bring in investors, we bring in expertise from abroad so that we can complement the whole structure and we provide the needed financing for the whole value chain. So indeed, there are a number of obstacles. And one of the obstacles as well is the policies. Not all the African governments have the right policies and enabling environment or enabling system that would support the creation of an automotive manufacturing business or even the components or the feeding industries. So to convince governments to adopt automotive policies, that's another marathon that we've been trying to go through. Dr. Ahmed talked about the experience in Egypt, but also that took a lot of time and took a lot of effort to develop. We have succeeded in countries like Ghana, for example. But indeed, if we want to look at the countries in Africa that have really succeeded in building up a complete automotive ecosystem, I think South Africa and Morocco would be an ideal example of these kinds of countries. And we're trying to replicate those kinds of successful stories. As Mariam rightly said, there will be countries that are small by nature and will not be able to become an OEM hub, for example, like Tunisia. One of the things that are inherited obstacles in Tunisia is that the banks are small, so they will not be able to support the kind of expansion with financing that would be required by a company like CoffeeCap, for example, to grow internationally and grow abroad. And again, this is where we see ourselves playing a major role in complementing the efforts and the capacities of local banks to provide the right liquidity and the needed liquidity deliberately to the automotive business. So there are a number of obstacles. As I said, from our humble opinion, they are all artificial. They are more of the risks are more of perceived risks than real risks. If you look at the entire value chain as one system, as one bankable asset, as one target to be financed and supported, if you design the right financing programs deliberately to support this sector, if you work closely with governments and other like the EFCFTA or the African Union to develop the right policies and adopt the right policies, then so many things can happen and so many things can change. At Afrexim Bank, we try to look more at opportunities than obstacles. We're tired of talking about obstacles, so let's talk more about opportunities. Otherwise, we will gather the same very people next year, and then we'll still be talking about obstacles again. So instead of focusing on obstacles, we try to focus on opportunities and harness what we can do at the moment so that things can move faster and in the right direction in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raymond. And that's definitely gives us a clear idea about Afrexim Bank's role actually in advancing mainly the sector of automotive and mobility by that vision of shared and working as one body, not only fragmented. That's definitely an important vision to implement. And I think that with other stakeholders around the table today and even in that room, that will be very important. I would like now to move to Mr. Felix Arazan, the head of program of GIZ, and the question will be more about how can development cooperation more effectively support the upgrading of the automotive ecosystems, particularly tier 1, tier 3 suppliers, and as well, again, the impact on SMEs.
Thank you, Akram. I think I'll start a little bit with the vision of what we worked with together with TAA, especially here in Tunisia and the Ministry of Industry, and thank you to both partners for the journey. I think the role of the international cooperation and the development cooperation is really in support towards the framework and in the initiation of certain activities. Just to tell a little bit the story of where this project came from, why we're sitting here, and what the voyage has been so far. In 2019, 4 German companies based in Tunisia, producing in Tunisia, requested from the German Ministry support for training. So as GIZ, that's what our job is. We are implementing for the German government. So we started with this training facility for these 4 companies. And that's where we started to work together with TAA. and the companies that are represented by TA to really define this training need and to expand this training need and to expand the training offer from these 4 companies into a training offer that is today servicing over 75 companies of all walks of life in the industry, that is accredited by VDA, so the German Automotive Association, and delivers training at an international standard level. The only accredited training center in Africa besides South Africa. And it's an offer that is actually now going towards Algeria, towards other African partners that have perhaps smaller industries. So that was one of the activities we started. Beside that, in parallel, together with TA, the companies and the ministry, we identified the investment challenges. And I think all of these factors were already addressed. Regulatory framework, human resources, innovation, services especially around the energy transition and the whole value, how is it called? Labor.
Value chain?
Value chain law, and the networking. We fixed these challenges and actually the responses into the national strategy and the Pacte de Compétitivité that was signed by the TAA and the ministry and the government actually in 2020-22. And now we're implementing step by step the defined measures. And I think that is where the international development cooperation really can support, because this is a load that cannot be taken only by the private sector or only by the government. But this facilitation, that's the advantage, the luxury of this development cooperation, where we can play a role of facilitator and framework building. And I think it's also what we're now talking about, your role sitting here, where we already started the discussion together with TA. Which are other markets, African markets, European markets, but also African markets? How can we now build this link towards other structures, making the partnership with AAAM and actually facilitating AAAM to open up the North Africa office and bringing North Africa and especially Tunisia also into this concert of actors. And I think that's where the cooperation can support, can facilitate, and can back up some of the partners that are the real implementers of the work.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a very important role of GIZ, enabling through the different programs and bringing together not only stakeholders in the country, but as well in terms of the region. So thanks to Mr. Ibrahim Debesh for joining us. You are so welcome, and I believe you came in the right time, because we need your answer now on the first round, where we are now checking the current state of the value chain. So the question is here to you, Mr. Ibrahim, that how strong are Africa's current capabilities in R&D, engineering, innovation, and where are the most urgent gaps that we need to address?
First of all, I would like to apologize for my late coming, but I'm very honored to be here in this panel talking about a very, very important topic, which is the future of the automotive industry in Africa. We can say today, I think, that in Africa, automotive R&D is no longer a blank slate. It's not a blank slate, but it remains concentrating in maybe some islands of excellence, such as South Africa, Morocco, and Tunisia. From my perspective, I could talk more about Tunisia's age and history in this field. So I will take the Tunisian experience as a good example of what we can do in this topic. In Tunisia, we have started in the automotive industry by building factories as a contractor of main car makers, especially European car makers, in the early 70s. Until now, we became a center of excellence, especially in wiring harnesses, which still represent the main components produced in this industry. But today, This is the past and this is the present. But the future actually is that Tunisia is now becoming a hub for embedded software and mechatronics. For that, it's both a public and private initiative that we need in order to build a veritable, a real ecosystem that could lead us to this move, which is a really, I will not say a revolution, but a big evolution, which is, of course, mandatory, and it's an obligation if we want to still be a player, a big player in this industry, considering the revolution that the automotive industry worldwide is actually going through. So for that, we can say that Tunisia is really considering this opportunity as a very important opportunity, considering that we have the skills and the competencies needed for that. Maybe this figure has already been given, but we have to mention that we have almost between 7,000 and 10,000 engineers that are getting graduated every year in Tunisia. And for that, it's very important, because without these human resources, we cannot move through this R&D and innovation potential. But it's not sufficient. We have to cooperate between, as I said, public and private, and for that we can mention the FITA2026 initiative, which is coming from the Education Ministry, that has promoted the innovation and creating a real potential in our universities, both private and public, in order to grow up these skills. And when I talk about ecosystem, on the private level, we have created this ecosystem through the technopoles and through the clusters, which is a great experience when we can have in one place all what is about universities, private companies, and startups. And thanks to the young generation, we have a very big potential in this domain in terms of startup. And we have also built an ecosystem with the Startup Act, which could lead these startups grow in this domain. So this is important that we have a collaboration between both academic research and industrial application. Secondly, we have this engineering prowess. We have strong capabilities in computer-aided design and embedded electronics. I'm working in this industry since more than 30 years now. And when we used to evaluate the price of the production of a car, we used to evaluate the weight of the car, because it was mainly based on the steel, which was one of the main components to build the car. Today, it's not anymore that point that we have to mention, because actually more than 60% of the car components are software engineering. So this is important, and that's why I think, we believe that with potential of Tunisian engineers in design and components for global, to become a big player in that field, such as we have been since more than 4 decades in the components, mechanic, plastics, and as I mentioned before, wiring harnesses. But there is another opportunity that we have to mention, and which could lead more than the 3 countries that I have already mentioned to be part of this game, is the micro-mobility and the micro-mobility, because actually the potential of the African continent is also to address the citizens' needs in terms of mobility. And we get the opportunity to move to other part of the country, of the continent, such as Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and other countries in Africa, when we have seen that there are big initiatives, such as we have here in Tunisia, in this domain. And maybe it could be also a good trend in order to be part of this new game in this industry. So I think that to do so, we have also to mention that we have some urgent gaps to address, especially when we are talking about e-mobility, micro-mobility. Is that the fact, and we have already this experience with some startup here in Tunisia, such as Baco Motors and others, that when they want to test and certify their products, they have to move to Europe. Because actually in Africa, we don't have any sufficient testing and certification infrastructure. And we have to think about it in order to build this infrastructure to offer the opportunity to these new projects and new startups, for example, to find the way to get the opportunity to have in Africa, and we have to cooperate also in that domain to create joint certification hubs. So this is one point. And the second point, maybe the second gap, is that when we are talking about startups and young entrepreneurs, there is a problem of how they can grow, and especially in terms of finance. We have also to think about opportunity to create funds that will allow them to grow, not by going in Europe or Asia or in US, but to grow in their own continent, I mean Africa. So this is, I think, two main topics that we have to address in order to guarantee the success of this great opportunity for our continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim. And I believe with that intervention setting the stage about innovation, engineering, and capacities, that will take us as a closure for the first round from where we are to where we want to go, actually. And since that we are getting a bit of tight of time, so we will try to be as much as accurate in our answers. So I would like to move to the second round, and I would like to start again with Dr. Ahmed. How should today the industrial policies evolve to support the regional co-production while avoiding the fragmentation, subsidies competition, and misaligned national strategies?
So since we are getting tight on time, I'm going to give some telegraphic messages on headlines of things where we need to do more work. So, great achievement, rules of origins approved after a long journey. So this is, in a way, the start of the journey for trade between the different countries. Because it's one thing to have something legislated or regulated or written in law, and it's another thing applying this. So application is going to be very important, and making sure that those who are in charge of implementation understand the rules of origin and how they work. Second point, we need to make sure that we harmonize our standards. This is a very critical part of making sure that there is free flow of goods between the different countries. It doesn't really make sense that in one country we have certain dimensions for a bus or a truck, and if other countries want to build scale, they cannot sell their product in another African country. A good example is the 1958 agreement of the United Nations, UNECE, and that is a very good umbrella, very good starting point, and talking about harmonization and homologation is key, and it will also attract business to the continent for testing and accreditation. Because of the scale, there are more than 60 countries that have adopted the UNECE regulations as part of their national standards. Moving on, used cars. We need to find a way to make sure that used cars are not allowed as part of the trade across Africa. Otherwise, there is almost no hope of industrializing, and the biggest example of this is what we see in Nigeria. It allows the importation of used cars, and it's making it very challenging for any investment to come into the country for industrialization. I don't want to dwell too much on stability of industrial policies, but there is no question that any investment, and investments in automotive are usually big investments, and if you do not have stability over the span of literally tens of years in a good way, there's no problem of reviewing the policies, but reviewing the policies needs to follow a framework in which the investor doesn't see that they made the investment on one premise and they are looking at a completely different setup or a completely different framework that they have to operate in. I don't see anything wrong with lobbying because as long as it is aligned with the national interests of the country, at the end of the day, investments and bringing investments and creating jobs and upskilling the labor force are all very good things to be done. We need to make sure that we have the voice of the industry well heard. At the end of the day, it is for policymakers to make the decisions, but they need to understand in some cases they do not see the full picture, and it's a good opportunity to share with them the full picture collectively. Skills are of paramount importance, and I can also say that I'm working with GIZ in Egypt to set up schools for the training of automotive skills in Egypt, and we need to develop this not only for blue collars but also for white collars, because at the end of the day, this is how we're going to raise the standards of living in the continent by bringing up the skill level across the continent. I think I will stop here and allow others to participate.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for that intervention. And indeed, these are the points from harmonizing the standards to African body, healthy lobbying. That's for sure will be enabler for that. And automotive and mobility skills today, it's more and more demanded from the industrial, so they can be able to really compete and to be able to have that added value. Let's now move to Miss Miriam, and I would like to go, especially with that coming of the rules of origin under the EFCFTA, how can Tunisia position itself as a regional hub for high-value component, engineering services, innovation, and not only cost competitiveness?
Thank you, Akram, and also thank you, Dr. Fikri, because you will allow me to shorten my answer, as you already pointed out all the advantages of implementing the AFCFTA, and obviously that would serve greatly Tunisia as well. I mean, implementing all of this and being able to count on one market, forget about some of the borders, working on the complementarity and really talking about business, not only as a standalone country, but with a regional view, with an African view. And indeed, as you mentioned, Akram, we need to shift from cost to capabilities, to innovation, because we know that we've been doing it. I mean, we've been working on it, and we are already at a solid stage now. We managed already to upgrade somehow our industrial context, because in the past, and a lot of people unfortunately still talk about it, but Tunisia was famous for competitiveness, of course, but Tunisia is more and more becoming famous for its capabilities, for its innovation, for the value, again, of its people. And that's, to me, the most important fact. We're working a lot on the visibility to promote that more and more and show it. You know, Mr. Ibrahim was referring earlier to software engineering. Software engineering today represents around 12% of what our automotive industry is doing. It's huge. I mean, and this is only in a few years. We started from very few things. I mean, and this is growing. And knowing that the part of software engineering in cars is also tremendously growing over the next years. So that means that Tunisia is really following the trends. And when we talk about the automotive mega trends, we talk about electromobility, we talk about connectivity, we talk about autonomous driving, and we're directly involved in that. So now, the second shift we need to do, and we need to do with AFCFTA, we need to do with the region, is how to integrate, to be integrated better with our neighbors. What we see is that most of the countries, they all try to have local integration on their own market. You see this in Egypt, we see this in Morocco, in South Africa, in the countries where you have basically an OEM, and even the countries who don't have an OEM but want to have one. Everybody wants to have an OEM, everybody wants to have a strong ecosystem, and everybody wants to have 100% integration. Even in Europe, that doesn't exist. That's important to know. I mean, in Europe, they collaborate together. The success of the EU on that was the ability to work together and identify the best complementarities. Now they have other problems, that's another story, it's not the topic of today. But we need to do the same for Africa. It's the volumes that we have, even in big countries that I mentioned, the volumes do not justify to have 100% integration rate. None of these countries justify to have it. So we need to find a way to work together. Maybe Tunisia will not manage to have the OEM in Tunisia, but we have all the rest. I mean, and if we manage to work in a smart manner with our neighbors, it's as if we had it. I mean, by the end of the day, it's not that essential. Of course, we're doing everything we can, but working efficiently and in complementarity with the neighbors, I think that would be the biggest success that one could expect. And that's the dream that AFCFTA is putting on the table and on which we have to work. Now about the role and what could Tunisia bring in that dream. I mean, Tunisia could be a hub for regional engineering and industrialization platforms. So we can offer engineering services, prototyping, process design across Africa. So we are a hub for innovation and skills again. And with TAMA, also Tunisian Automotive Management Academy, we can also train. So that's an important aspect. We have shared innovation infrastructure for testing, validation, certifications, and applied R&D as well. We can also specialize in more in high value component subsystems where quality, reliability, compliance matter most, because as I mentioned earlier, we are perfectly aligned with the highest standards of the automotive industry. And what we should be pushing for as well is structured partnerships based on complementarity, again, over Africa this time. Especially when we talk about raw materials, this is often addressed in the events regarding Africa. And this is a topic where I think we are not putting enough efforts. I would give the example of my company, Coffee Cab. We buy thousands of tons of copper yearly. We buy it from Europe. We don't buy from Africa. And that again, that emphasizes on the need to align the standards, to align the infrastructure, and to work on all of this so that Africa can really work together, of course, with the highest standards that are demanded by the automotive industry.
Thank you.
I hope it was not too long.
No, that was good. That definitely important. Thank you for sharing that that vision. However, that vision is already on its operational journey, which really appreciated, and giving that structured partnerships not only across our neighbors but as well across the region, and benefits from Tunisia expertise with the European continent. That would definitely be a huge milestone for advancing that. Now, let me move to Mr. Fakhri, and I will change in French. Parlons encore une fois des règles d'origine de SDICAF. Ces disciplines relatives au commerce, marchandises, pourraient-ils être davantage affinées ou mises en œuvre afin de favoriser une véritable coproduction régionale des composantes automobiles et de mobilité?
Merci pour votre question. Donc, être revu, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, on n'a pas encore essayé d'appliquer les règles d'origine parce qu'ils ont été juste adoptés dernièrement. Mais je pense que le pourcentage, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, de 40% de produits locaux pour le moment, c'est assez suffisant, et malgré que ça a été contesté par certains pays qui ont voulu un taux d'intégration régionale plus élevé, mais actuellement, on ne peut pas dépasser ce taux. Et comme j'ai dit, il faut prendre en considération les capacités de tous les pays, même si des pays sont assez avancés, ils peuvent atteindre ce taux et peuvent le dépasser. Je pense que la Tunisie, on peut le dépasser dans certaines composantes, mais il faut prendre en considération tous les pays, tous les moyens de pays, parce que là, on est en train de parler d'une intégration régionale, d'un marché régional, et ce n'est pas question de vendre pour les autres. Parce que si on prend la ZLECAF et on veut, spécialement pour ce secteur de l'automobile, parce que bien sûr la Tunisie a des capacités de production pour le câblage, pour les chaises, pour les pneumatiques et ainsi de suite, mais pour qui vous allez produire et pour qui vous allez vendre, si vous n'avez pas d'autre partie des acheteurs. Donc il faut se mettre d'accord que les produits que nous devons produire, ils doivent avoir un acheteur au niveau continental, et que cet acheteur aussi peut nous vendre certains produits. Donc c'est ça l'idée actuellement. Actuellement, on va garder ces taux-là pendant 5 ans, mais peut-être dans l'avenir, et on peut les changer. Et même à mi-chemin, si on s'aperçoit que dans certains produits, peut-être on peut aller pour un taux d'intégration plus avancé entre pays africains. Pourquoi pas? Parce que bien sûr, taux d'intégration plus élevé, c'est industrialisation, création de richesses au niveau de notre continent. Voilà. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Fakhri. Je pense que cet engagement du ministère du Commerce, surtout dans cette négociation, et de mettre devant les règles d'origine, ça va aussi renforcer le rôle des différentes parties prenantes, surtout d'avoir d'investissement et la continuité d'extension de ces projets-là. Merci beaucoup. I would like now again to move to Afreximbank. And Mr. Ayman, with your mentioning that from actually the challenges are not actually in opportunities, my question will be not how to do risk, however, what would be the instrument that cross-border investment to accelerate AFC FTA aligned with the automotive project, which have you mentioned, but now with the more future aligned and in concrete way?
Let me speak in a larger scale of it, not just investments, because we have really thought this through. And as the world was created in 7 days, we also see 7 steps that needs to be taken in order to shift the narrative of the automotive sector in Africa. It's a manuscript or a recipe, if you would like, that we have come up with, and we've designed all our financing programs and interventions accordingly. So the very first one would be to create scale through the AFCFTA. There's no single market demand that is enough to create automotive business in one country. You need the regional demand to justify the creation of an OEM in a single country, and Mariam spoke very well about that from experience. We need to build supplier networks. The real value is in components. So we need tires, we need batteries, we need glass manufacturing, we need wiring, we need plastics, seats, electric supplies. That would create the momentum for automotive business to be created. The third step would be to finance the entire value chain, as I spoke earlier, not just the factory. Support should cover OEMs, suppliers, distributors, fleet operators, logistics, and also after-sales networks. And to do that, many of those are SMEs, as you just said. So we just need to use the anchor companies to de-risk the SME. Many of the suppliers and the fleet operators or logistics providers are SMEs, but they do have contracts with the big suppliers, and they supply the OEMs. So we can use that contract and use the anchor company to de-risk the SME, and the opportunity itself becomes bankable. The fifth one would be to develop skills and technology. That's very key for Africa. We need the right engineers, we need the right quality control specialists, we need real local R&D in the automotive sector. 6 would be to improve the infrastructure and in an energy sector. Mariam also spoke about importing copper from Europe because we don't have the necessary infrastructure to import the very same copper from neighboring countries in Africa. So that needs to change, and we need energy. You cannot create an automotive business or manufacturing without having the necessary energy to supply those factories. 7, move into the future. I can still hear people talking about electrical cars and batteries as future business. No longer is the past. It's just we are so much behind, and we need to adopt and embrace this technology. And we have the raw materials for that in Africa. We have the lithium for the batteries, we have the copper for the wires, we have all the raw materials necessary to support the electrical automobiles and the batteries and so on and so forth. So we have financing programs and interventions and initiatives that support each one of those steps, whether on the facilitation side or on the financing side. I'll be happy to mobilize that. Me, myself, have been trying to finance my very first electrical manufacturing plant anywhere. I just didn't find the right opportunity yet. But hopefully we can do major things on the continent very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayman. And I believe that definitely we will need that financial, because I believe that there is a lot of innovations going across Africa, and there is a lot of huge added value, not only to our country, but however to the world itself. Allow me to move to Mr. Felix Sarrazin. As you have already shared what has been done in terms of experience since 2019, now I would like to move. My question will be around which partnership models among donors, governments, industry association, and OEMs have proven most effective in scaling regional automotive value chains?
I will not answer to the question have proven, because I don't think we have anything proven. So please allow me to avoid that answer. I think what we already said. So I'll interpret your question more. What can we do to improve, and which kind of partnership should we look for? And I think, as we just said, also we have the financing part, but we need also the technical part. And I think the major acts. And I think Dr. Fikri said it also, it's partnership and it's complementarity. And it needs to be a win-win partnership. And the international or the development corporation's role could be a technical accompanying of certain sectors. Miriam and Dr. Fikri, you both spoke about trainings. We have a Tunisian Management Academy in Tunisia, for example, that can be shared. This experience can be shared across the continent and does not need to be repeated from scratch. We could be a partner in that. In Egypt, you're developing the vocational training for the automotive sector already. We talked about standards, we talked about alignment, to bring these trainings into similar structures, to align these trainings, that the vocational training in Egypt is similar. It doesn't need always to be the same, because the industries might be different. But the structures, the thought behind it, that they are aligned, because that allows a company to move from A to B, that allows to exchange, and allows actually a much shorter way to market, because we have certain solutions already that we don't reinvent in Tunisia, in Morocco, wherever we're talking about. So I really think this partnership, and for me, one of the key factors in this partnership, and that's again where we could play a role in supporting technically, but is the building of strong national associations that can follow up, that have the ownership to push these policies forward in each of the countries, working under an umbrella or under the coordination or under the network of something like AAAM that can coordinate these efforts across the continent and align this complementarity and bring this dialogue that sometimes is not always feasible is the wrong word, but AAAM and the international cooperation or development cooperation can build this framework for a political regional dialogue around this integration and complementarity. And I think that could be the value added.
Thank you so much, Mr. Felix, for that, and definitely that's very important and crucial in order to be developing across the continent. Let me finish the second round with Mr. Ibrahim, and you have already mentioned in your sharing of your expertise, which we really appreciate. Now my question will be related: how can e-mobility, micro-mobility, and a new propulsion technology unlock higher value, future-oriented African automotive and mobility components?
I think to answer this question, we have to, I'm from the distribution perspective. I'm not, I would say, an industrial in my background. So when I have to think about something, I have to think about what is the customer needs. So my question, what are the African needs? Today we have mentioned many important topics. We still import millions of cars, of used cars from all over the world. When we try to build our own automotive industry to address African needs. So in that topics we have this experience of micromobility, which could be a first step, I think very important step, in order to answer these customer and African needs. I mean that when we have this experience of retrofitting, which is one of the solutions, we have many experience, and we have seen that in all over the countries that we are going, when we go in whole Africa, both East and West and North Africa. So I think we have also to give the opportunity to this young generation, young entrepreneurs, to have the opportunity to be part of the game. And that's why I think we have the chance here, maybe with this AFCTA, which could really be very important in order, as I mentioned before, to create these excellent centers in order to capitalize all these skills mentioned by Mrs. Miriam. This is very important. It's one thing to have the skills, but it's also very important to give them the opportunity to stay here. You know that our countries, especially North Africa, but not only North Africa, one of the main problem that we have actually is that we are educating people. We are every year thousands of graduate people, and they are leaving. They are going in all the world. They are not developing their competencies and their skills here in Africa. And if we want to be part of the game, if we want to be part of this shift of the automotive industry, and we have the opportunity, and if we want to not be only subcontractors, but to increase the added value, local added value, and the integration rate, as has been mentioned by Mr. Fakhri, this is the game. This is where we have to work on. And that's why I think the AFCTA, it's really a focus that allowed us to think together and not to work anymore in silos that what we did in the past. Now we have to work in partnership, in cooperation, in order to offer to our African continent, not only because this is the, I would say, the objective, this is the target, is to make the car in Africa, but I will say it's more to think the car in Africa. And when we are talking about R&D and innovation, this is what we can do by really creating our own added value to be really a part of this new value chain worldwide of this very important industry. And I will finish on one thing. Maybe what's happened all over the world these last decades in terms of geopolitics crisis and what's happened actually in Middle East pushed the car makers to rethink their logistics and their supply chains. And for us, it's a great opportunity. And we have to take it now, because this is the time when the car makers will think differently. They will not think only to consider Asia as the opportunity to be more competitive, as it has been mentioned, but to get also the opportunity to get close partners which are the same culture, the same education competencies and skills, to offer opportunity to not only address the needs of Africa, but also to address the new needs of this automotive industry worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim, and for emphasizing about the future and for the frame of the AFCTA. Before we conclude, actually, I would like to return now briefly to one final question so we can have a concrete way of doing, which asked now to be in a concrete forward-looking. So the question will be, what's the one priority action that we must be taken in the next 2 years to accelerate Africa automotive and mobility value chain? But before I'm going to my distinguished panelists to ask, and to have their expertise and vision, I would like to share with you a video from the EFC FTA Secretariat, the Director, Mr. Timba Kumalo, who did not able to make it here today. But let's see together this video together, and then we will move to our distinguished guest. Thank you.
Greetings, moderator and fellow panelists. This is Temba Kumalo. I'm with the FCFTA Secretariat. I wish to appreciate the opportunity to contribute to this conversation, and my apologies for not being able to physically join you in this important gathering and the panel, to be specific. With the partners in the form of AAAM, Afrexim Bank, Standards Organization, the African Union Commission, and generally the state parties to the FCFTA, we managed to put together an FCFTA automotive strategy that was considered by the ministers and adopted in 2023 as a living document to help us guide at the time the rules of origin negotiation, but also just generally to look at how we can be able to leverage both on the FCFTA and the industry to be able to create the jobs that we so need in the continent. And I do wish to commend the contribution of Tunisia as a country on those negotiations, considering the industrial capacity that they have and the interest that they have in components manufacturing that have demonstrated across the world and the continent, to be specific, on how they contribute to job creation. It is for this reason that we find ourselves in a space where we can be able to say we are ready for implementation, given the conclusion of rules of origin negotiations that took place in September 2025, wherein the ministers concluded on the rules of origin in September 2025 through appreciation of the role of the sector on the objectives of the FCFTA and the need to actually leverage on the market that it presents to justify the investments that we have seen in the continent in some of the countries, given let's say industrial capacity that exists in countries such as South Africa and Morocco, Egypt, from a manufacturing point of view, and also a number of assembly plants in the continent, investments in components manufacturing that we have seen in countries such as Tunisia and some of the small economies in the form of Lesotho and Botswana, which continue to demonstrate the opportunity to get everyone involved in the work of the FCFTA in the continent. So this discussion therefore comes at a time at which we are working on the mandate provided or given by the ministers to get us to develop what we call a 5-year investment plan that should be able to create a space and opportunity for all the countries to get involved in the value chain, from those that have minerals to contribute in the FCFTA to those that have capacity to process the minerals for production of components that are so important to contribute into the 40% local content that the ministers have instructed and directed in the form of agreed rules of origin to guide benefits under the FCFTA. I do wish to commend the role of Tunisia, that has also participated in what we call an executive short course on automotive industrial policy, which is a platform that we think should be able to help us create a critical mass of Africans that would be able to guide the implementation and taking advantage of the opportunities being provided by the automotive industry in the continent. So, as I said, apologies for not being there, but I think this is an opportunity for everyone to get involved. We appreciate the role that AAAM continues to guide state parties from a policy review and development perspective in line with the FCFTA. We continue to work with Afreximbank, which has provided a $1 billion facility to help countries and industry players that are looking into investing, especially in components manufacturing across the continent. It's an opportunity that can now be triggered by the now concluded rules of origin negotiations, which we believe are key in helping us to create the jobs that I referred to. The ministers directed that the local content should be set at 40%, and it's an opportunity, therefore, that we think has been availed to all the state parties under the FCFTA that can be able to cumulatively help us reach that local content threshold for benefits under the FCFTA, which is in the same manner that I spoke to in as far as how the rules of origin should be able to enable industrialization and the development of regional value chains across the continent. We therefore appreciate the continued role by the Tunisia Automotive Association in supporting investments in the country, which we believe are critical to not only demonstrating what we can be able to do as African economies, but that this is possible for everyone who wishes to contribute to the value chain. And I think it's an opportunity for everyone to therefore build their value propositions, engage with the original equipment manufacturers, engage with the global components manufacturers, leverage on the AFCFTA and the facility that is being provided by Afreximbank to be able to support investments in the continent, and let's work together to ensure the success of the automotive sector under the framework of the FCFTA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know that my general moderator is asking me that we are already out of time. However, I will be closing in 2 minutes for what last words from our panelists to our dear guests and audience. Dr. Fikri, quickly.
Very quickly, let me build on what Mrs. Mariam said earlier. India, population of about 1.5 billion, the continent of Africa 1.5 billion, income level roughly average $2,000 per capita, India $3,000 per capita, so 1.5 times. Vehicle production, Africa around 1.5 million, India around 5 million, more than 3 times. It doesn't justify this income difference, doesn't justify. It's all about free trade and building scale. AFCFTA will hopefully give us an opportunity to build scale in the continent with complementarity and cooperation between the different states. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miriam?
I will go even faster than that, but thank you, Dr. Fikri, for putting numbers and figures on what I was referring to in the beginning. So I think we have all the ambition, we have all the strategies that are needed. What we need, one word, execution. We need to start executing all that we have been dreaming about.
Fair enough. Monsieur Fakhri, un dernier mot?
Merci. Je voudrais juste ajouter... Tous les points ont été présentés et bien expliqués par les honorables panélistes. Cependant, je voudrais indiquer qu'aussi tous les éléments qui ont été discutés aujourd'hui font partie de la stratégie de développement des chaînes de valeur automobiles qui est en train d'être mise en place par la task force au niveau du secrétariat de la SLECAF, qui est composé des pays partis à la SLECAF, de l'Afreximbank et de la AAAM. Donc cette stratégie, elle représente, elle donne des issues et des solutions par rapport à tous ces éléments, tout ce qui est relation avec les normes, l'homologation et l'harmonisation des normes, l'accès au financement, le développement de l'industrialisation et l'accompagnement des pays pour s'industrialiser au niveau du secteur automobile. Donc, ce qu'il reste à faire, c'est de travailler ensemble. Le plus important, c'est de travailler ensemble. On n'est pas des concurrents. On doit travailler ensemble comme ça a été effectué aux autres continents. Et le continent africain a toutes les possibilités pour se développer. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur Fahri. Mr. Ayman.
Very quickly, if there's one thing that I would like to see changing when we talk about the automotive, is that for people to stop thinking about the vehicle. It's not about the vehicle, it's about the ecosystem, it's about the value chain, it's about the industrial transformation. If we can align policy with finance and execution, then Africa can become a real hub for automotive industry rather than a market for the fully assembled or semi-assembled vehicles.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Felix?
Using what you just said, I think everybody needs to play its role, from finances, association, politics, and technical support. Real partnership, win-win, complementarity, and actually courage, because we need courage to implement and execute, as Miriam said.
Fair enough. We are closing with Mr. Ibrahim on last word.
Always difficult to summarize in one word, but as I mentioned, we have to think the car in Africa and not only build the car in Africa. And for that, as I mentioned, we need infrastructure, we need testing, certification infrastructure to be developed jointly all together in order to create regional hub of excellencies to support this shift in this automotive industry.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. When we are running TA video, we would like to take a group picture and we are done. And we are apologies for our next panel for that delay. Thank you.
Welcome to the race of innovation, driving us constantly.
Merci beaucoup pour nos panélistes, pour ce panel très intéressant sur l'industrie automobile. Nous passons à la photo de groupe, comme d'habitude. Merci beaucoup à tous nos panélistes, à toute l'audience. Nous allons, sans transition, directement passer à une cérémonie de signature de nouveaux protocoles d'accord de partenariat entre TABC et nos différents partenaires. Merci encore une fois, avec vos applaudissements, à tous nos panélistes.
We'll take on your challenges with cutting-edge solutions, innovative thinking, and smart effectiveness. That's our
Nous vous prions de bien vouloir garder vos places parce que c'est une cérémonie officielle quand même de signature de partenariat. C'est important de célébrer nos réalisations et c'est un plaisir de les partager avec vous aussi. Merci beaucoup.
ingenuity and spirit of collaboration is truly unique to create a bright future where innovation takes flight. Time is money, and we understand. In this fast-paced world, time is in high demand. That's why our streamlined processes and agile solutions are designed to get your products to market with lightning executions. From prototyping to manufacturing and logistics in between, a country with a history in the early days of the industry can take your business to new heights and shape new era of mobility with your capital might. With skill and will, we're moving forward in the race for revolution. That's why the world's leading brands trust us and challenge us every day. Enabling the future of mobility in every single way. Tunisian automotive industry.